Sylvie Cooper is a student at an expensive private school and is an alienated and misanthropic teenager. She initially meets Ivy, a poor but clever and incredibly trashy girl, at a neighborhood hangout where Ivy enjoys rope swinging from a tree. A small boy approaches and shouts, "Come on. A dog got hit." Sylvie kneels close to the still-breathing dog and witnesses Ivy mercy killing it to stop its suffering. After class, while sitting in the office, she notices a tattoo on Ivy's legs, who insists that it's a stick-on. Ivy has been busted for slipping in biology, which affects her scholarship. Meanwhile, Sylvie has been caught for making a threat to a local TV station where her father works. She did it because the editorial claimed that teenagers are too hormonally imbalanced to have driver's licenses. This surprises Ivy, who realizes that Sylvie is upset with her father. Later that day, when Sylvie's father, Daryl, arrived to pick her up, he scolded her for making the threat. Sylvie then apologized for what she had done. A while later, Ivy arrived and requested a ride. Daryl, Sylvie's father, was initially hesitant, but Sylvie pleaded with him to let Ivy ride, claiming that she was her best friend. Daryl eventually agreed. Ivy tells Sylvie she feels car sick and requests to sit in the front, a ruse to get closer to Daryl. Ivy has a thing for older men. Ivy rests her bare feet on the dashboard and lets her miniskirt sag back onto her hip. Daryl has taken note. A few weeks later, they reunite at the same hangout, now that Sylvie is no longer grounded. Ivy invites her to go rope swinging, but Sylvie refuses because she is afraid, so she decides to leave. Ivy follows her afterward. They walk to Sylvie's house together, where Ivy notices a necklace that Daryl gave Sylvie. Along the way, Sylvie informs Ivy that Daryl is her adopted father and that her biological father was black, but her mother is her real mom. Ivy begins to narrate about her father, who left her years ago. Sylvie claims to have attempted to leave her life behind. As Ivy is heading home, Sylvie invites her to come over to her parents' house, mentioning that she has no friends. Ivy feels the same way, so she excitedly accepts the invitation. They stroll into the living room, which overlooks the San Fernando Valley. Ivy expresses that if she had to commit herself, she would want to fall. Georgie, Sylvie's ailing mother, interrupts their talk. Initially, Georgie dislikes Sylvie's friendship with Ivy, citing that she's a bad influence, but Sylvie insists that Ivy is her best friend. Feeling guilty for causing trouble for the mother and daughter, Ivy decides to leave. However, Sylvie stops her by bringing up her scholarship. Ivy then helps Georgie by unblocking her oxygen tank. When Ivy sees a picture of Georgie, she expresses her hope that when she dies, she'll have a sports car, a family, and a home, unlike her own mother, who passed away without ever achieving anything. In the end, Ivy manages to win Georgie over. Sylvie explains in a voiceover that Georgie admired Ivy's enthusiasm. When they went shopping, Ivy bought things, and Sylvie paid. Over the next several weeks, Sylvie's mother and stepfather adored Ivy to the point that she sort of moved in. When Georgie offers to lend Ivy some of her clothes because of their similar sizes, Ivy begins to wear the expensive outfits. Ivy and Sylvie share bed and clothes. One day, Daryl admired Ivy's beauty from a distance and approached her to start a conversation. Ivy asked him to fetch her boots, but they accidentally fell into the water and got soaked. As a result, Ivy charged him $150 for the boots and didn't give him any change. While preparing to leave, Ivy answered a call intended for Sylvie from James at Head Start regarding Sylvie's appointment schedule. Ivy mentioned that Sylvie was available that day, but it coincided with her father's birthday. The next morning, Sylvie was making coffee for her stepfather. Because she didn't follow the instructions, it didn't turn out right, leading to an argument within the family. Sylvie claims she wanted to do something to make her parents cringe after a disagreement with them. A while later, they went to a tattoo shop, and Ivy convinced Sylvie to get a tattoo so that they can be like blood sisters. That day, Daryl didn't pick them up because he was still at work, so they hitched a ride with a stranger to get home. As time went on, Sylvie became increasingly confused about her gender identity. Ivy confessed her love for her, and Sylvie felt the same way about Ivy, leading to Ivy kissing her. One night, Georgie was standing as if she were about to do something worse. Sylvie and Ivy arrived, interrupting the moment. An enraged Sylvie confronted Georgie, who wanted to be left alone. Sylvie advised her mother to pray to avoid thinking about doing something worse, but Georgie ignored her. After that, Daryl bumped into Ivy, who noticed his hair. Ivy expressed her admiration for Daryl as a TV personality. She noticed a wound on Daryl's hand and kissed it, which made Daryl uncomfortable. A few days later, James, Sylvie's supervisor at the charity center, came to pick up Sylvie for their errands. However, Daryl decided to hold a party at his house to improve his faltering career and enlisted Sylvie's assistance. Ivy had already informed James that Sylvie was available to work the night of the party, allowing Ivy to take her place. That night, Ivy caught the attention of the guests, who were amazed by her beauty, even the celebrant, Daryl. She straightened her hair and dressed up in one of Georgie's gowns. After the party, she danced in the kitchen until Daryl walked in. Ivy started dancing with Daryl, and they embraced. However, Georgie walked in and confronted them before storming upstairs. Georgie and Daryl were sitting together when Ivy stepped in and apologized to Georgie. She claimed that Daryl had come into the kitchen crying, and she was merely cuddling him to make him feel better. Georgie believed her and accepted Ivy's glass of champagne. She then passed out due to the sleeping substance Ivy had mixed into the champagne. Ivy sat next to Georgie on the bed, and Daryl started massaging Ivy's legs while Ivy touched him with her foot as he kissed them. The two entertained each other. Ivy seemed to change over the next few days. She kept straightening her hair and wearing more of Georgie's outfits. She also started taking Sylvie's puppy, Fred, with her and meddling with Georgie's luxury car. Sylvie became more annoyed with Ivy and threw a fuss when she discovered her with Fred in Georgie's luxury car. She forced Fred to choose between her and Ivy. Ivy cheated by shaking the sweets in her pockets while calling Fred, and Sylvie was helpless. Sylvie skipped school that day to spend some alone time working through her thoughts. Daryl picked up Ivy at school and took her into the forest, where Ivy happily played in the rain until Daryl joined her. Ivy got Daryl intoxicated, and the unexpected happened. They had fun, which led to them entertaining each other. That night, Ivy apologized about the dog, claiming she never had one and pretending it was hers. The two reconciled. The next morning, after listening to a record prepared for her by Sylvie, Georgie came out onto her balcony. Ivy approached her from behind and started talking to Georgie. Then, without warning, Ivy threw Georgie from the balcony, making it look like it was Georgie's intention, as Georgie had previously promised. Sylvie arrived looking for her mother but didn't find her. Meanwhile, Ivy stayed hidden in her hiding place. Sylvie never thought her mom would really do it. Even though she had threatened before, Sylvie didn't believe her. That night, Ivy slept in Georgie's bed, which made Sylvie angry. However, Ivy convinced her to lie down beside her and talk about her mother, and Sylvie agreed. Meanwhile, Daryl went to work, only to find out that he had been replaced and was no longer the general manager of the TV station. A few weeks later, Sylvie washed Georgie's old sports vehicle, and Ivy approached, urging her to go for a drive with the urn containing Georgie's remains. She proposed they take a trip as a farewell to Georgie. While driving, Ivy started humming the tune Georgie was playing the morning she pushed her. Sylvie confronted her and realized that Ivy had been there on the day something happened to Georgie. Feeling guilty, Ivy became angry because she felt accused. In her frustration, Ivy crashed the car to avoid responding. Sylvie had passed out from a major head injury. Ivy placed the unconscious Sylvie in the driver's seat to implicate her. Later, Daryl arrived at the hospital to visit Sylvie. She told him that Ivy was behind everything, but Daryl didn't listen and instead blamed her for what happened. Sylvie had a hallucination that her mother was seated in front of her while holding her necklace. This motivated her to return home in an effort to save her father from Ivy. She successfully escaped from the hospital without any trouble and flagged down a stranger's car to hitch her ride and get home quickly. When Sylvie arrives at her residence, it is storming. She goes inside to get out of the rain, having hallucinations along the way due to her head injuries. Once inside, she discovers Daryl and Ivy having fun in the living room. She immediately exits the room and runs outside. While chasing after her, Daryl slips on the stairs. Ivy approaches him, and Daryl notices the bruise on her chest, realizing that Ivy was the one driving the car. She insists that she was protecting Daryl in regard to the insurance. Daryl then goes to look for Sylvie and instructs Ivy to stay put. Ivy goes up to Georgie's old room and inserts the tape that was playing the morning Georgie passed away. She slips into Georgie's robe and steps out onto the balcony. Sylvie is sitting outside in the storm when she notices a light and, due to her severe head injury, believes it is her mother on the balcony. She goes up to the room and sees her mother turning around from the balcony. Sylvie tells Georgie she loves her, and Georgie reciprocates. They kiss, but Sylvie awakens from her hallucination and realizes it is Ivy. Ivy says Georgie wanted to die and that now the three of them can be a family. Sylvie rejects her delusion and pushes Ivy over the balcony. Ivy grabs onto her necklace in an attempt to take Sylvie with her but fails. As the chain breaks, a screaming Ivy falls to her demise alone, still clutching the necklace. Daryl returns to see Ivy on the ground with Sylvie above. The film concludes with Sylvie narrating that she still loves and misses Ivy and that she forgives her since she was even more alone than her. For more videos similar to this, don't forget to subscribe and enable notifications. Thank you for watching.